NASCAR is filled to the brim with young talent, from Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney to Alex Bowman and William Byron to this year's rookie class featuring Christopher Bell, Cole Custer, Tyler Reddick. This, even though they pretty much have underperformed, besides Tyler Reddick, who is actually outperforming everybody's expectations. But Christopher Bell and Cole Custer have been kind of underwhelming. Cole Custer looked kind of good at Phoenix, but Christopher Bell can't even finish a race. But still, they're considered to be one of the best rookie classes in a long time. So there's that. These NASCAR drivers have not shown much in the way of success. They've gotten some wins, but nothing that crazy until recent, where, Chase Elliott has had a couple breakout years. Ryan Blaney's got 3 wins. Alex Bowman had a great first 4 races, and if he can continue that when he comes back, I honestly think he's a championship contender. But that's not the point. Those young drivers doing great. They're getting a lot of love for great reason. Christopher Bell and all those guys, they get a lot of love. But what if I told you that there is a driver out there that doesn't get a lot of love? Not a lot of people talk about him. They know of him. They know he exists, and they might notice that he does pretty good, but he's never really had top tier equipment, and he doesn't really have, or didn't really have, a lot of sponsorship, and he's kind of earned that over his career. And despite not having a lot of sponsorship and not driving for top tier equipment, whatever series he's in, he seems to get pretty good finishes in his equipment, and he seems to me is really talented. And no, it's not Ross Chastain. Today we're going to be talking about John Hunter Nemechek. I know you guys are probably surprised, but yeah, I personally think John Hunter Nemechek may be the most overlooked and underrated young talent in today's NASCAR.
Lesson from the brain, seeing the beauty through the
So you may be wondering how I came to this conclusion, and to be honest, it just kind of happened. I mean, I was thinking about, how he's been pretty good, in the first 4 races for Front Row, honestly better than Christopher Bell. We know that's out of Christopher Bell's control, but still, regardless, doesn't change the fact that he's been better. And, he's been a full 180 for Matt Tifft last year at Front Row's number 36 car. And I decided, look up his stats, see how he was before, and it surprised me. I knew he got wins in Nemco equipment, which is not good equipment, but still the all-around consistency in that equipment, which again is not top-tier equipment, surprised me. And then I consoled my very good friend that most of you guys probably know in Shenry20, and he agreed with me. He agreed that this is somebody who's pretty underrated, and I decided to make a video, and here we are. John Hunter Nemechek kind of had this perception that his dad, who had a very underwhelming Cup career, was the only reason he was in a ride. And yeah, that's kind of the truth. He may not have gotten the Nemco opportunity, but I mean, assuming he has the same ride to the Cup Series as he did, I mean, he might have even gotten a better opportunity, because in no way, shape, or form should he have performed the way he did in Nemco equipment. Now, granted, somehow John Hunter Nemechek found a way to get a better ride than everybody else that Nemco was getting, but still, he outperformed. I mean, he was still in equipment that was not, up to par with Thor Sport, GMS, or KBM at the time. BKR, I think, was still there. Brad Keselowski Racing. That was probably still a step back, but his equipment was still a step back from those teams, but he still was on par with drivers at those teams. And the main thing that really gave him this perception of talentless was this finish right here with Cole Custer at Canadian Tire. While it was a pretty dirty move, and but it was still an interesting finish, I would say. I think you could agree. But it wasn't necessarily the most classiest move, but it was just a bad day. I mean, you see everyone have it. I mean, even Chase Elliott, he's loved now. He's had dirty moments at Canadian Tire as well. So I don't understand why that narrative was really spun at the time, because I mean, like I said, Chase Elliott had the same kind of, not exact same. I forget what happened. He dumped Ty Dillon, but still had a dirty issue at Canadian Tire, and there's some hate thrown towards him, but most of it was shaken off within weeks. Also, Racing Reference put it in as Bowmansville instead of Canadian Tire, and it confused the living hell out of me. But, I mean, just because you're unsponsored doesn't mean you can be slow. Obviously, he's won 3 races in unsponsored cars, but still, I mean, you can't tell me that they're making a lot of money off of that if they're not having sponsors. They got some associate sponsors there on the side, but they don't have a hood sponsor that, and it was considered unsponsored when you go on to when you go on to Racing Reference. So nobody was, putting in big money in this kid, but he was still winning anyways. You saw that with Brett Moffitt, so it's obviously not impossible, but to plug the narrative that the only reason he was successful was because of his father, and that is just straight up incorrect. But you also can't say just because he won a lot that he was in great equipment. He was in probably, like I said, a 4-star equipment if we were on like NASCAR heat scale. Obviously Thor Sport, KBM being 5-star, Nemco being probably 4-star, but he performed like a 5-star team. And if you want to look, they're honestly a 3-star team if you look at, recent, as in 2019, Nemco made a total of 37 entries in the Truck Series, only got 2 top 10s. One of those being John Hunter Nemechek at Martinsville. He made 5 starts, only getting 1 top 5. The other one, I'm not really sure who the other one was, but still, that's like, I mean, he got more than that in his, his sophomore season. He got like 6, I believe, in his second season where he ran about like 18 races. So definitely a bottom feeder team. But however John Hunter Nemechek's dad, Joe Nemechek, was able to get that equipment going, he was able to get it going for John Hunter Nemechek. I think there may have been, and I looked up for alliances. I did see they switched to Chevy, so maybe Chevy was giving them some stuff. But for the most part, there wasn't any alliances. So I'd say they probably weren't getting that much good equipment. Chevy partnership was also purely speculation. Could just be a coincidence that they switched to Chevy, but I feel like maybe Chevy did give them some good equipment, but I could be wrong. It's purely speculation. In John Hunter Nemechek's Truck Series career, he made 2 full-time campaigns and 2 half-season runs, about 18 races in the Truck Series between 2018 and 2015. Don't know why I said it backwards, but I did. Between 2015 and 2018, John Hunter Nemechek's stats looked like this: 6 wins, 27 top 5s, 44 top 10s, and 82 starts. So if you can do math, which I can't, over 50% of his finishes within that 4-year span were top 10 finishes. I would say that's pretty good. I could be wrong. I'm not a stats god, wizard, or anything like that, but I think those are pretty good stats. Not sure why, but I didn't put his average finish on the graphic. He finished with a 12.37 or a 12.4 average finish, and quite frankly, in his final season, that's what really killed his average finish. He raced 18 races and only finished 11. He had a lot of issues with his car, and that was really throughout actually all of this. I think that's what really killed his average finish a lot, was because he wasn't actually able to finish the race because of a lot of mechanical issues and of course just the usual wrecks. So I think that is kind of a cause for, not really a cause for concern, but I think that is kind of a cause for, why his average finish was kind of higher than I would have liked. 2018, John Hunter Nemechek would also get his big break with Chip Ganassi Racing in their final year of Xfinity operations. He would run 18 starts for the team, earning 1 win, I believe at Kansas, 6 top 5s, 11 top 10s, and again 18 starts, and had an average finish of 10.1. He also finished in 13th in the point standings despite not running the entire season, which kind of blows my mind. I know the Xfinity Series currently isn't that competitive, but remember back then you had Brendan Poole in the 48 at Chip Ganassi, so there's a car. You had Roush, I think, for half the season that season, and you had some other contenders that aren't there anymore now. So you did have, there wasn't just the kind of 3 to 4 teams you see now just running for it. There was actually 4 to 5 competitive teams out there garnering about the top 10, the top 12, I would say. So pretty decent finishes there, and really good equipment. But here is where the problem occurred. I think that Ross Chastain kind of overshadowed John Hunter Nemechek, which caused him to go under the radar. It made him Chip Ganassi's number one prospect, whereas I feel like John Hunter Nemechek was their number one prospect, but with good reason. I would say Ross Chastain does seem to be a more talented driver than John Hunter Nemechek. But on the contrary, John Hunter Nemechek, in my opinion, has proven to be not as talented, but pretty much up there with Ross Chastain. I mean, he has had a very similar story. I mean, he hasn't driven for premium yet, but he's driven for some mediocre teams and performed very well in them, just as Ross Chastain has in his career. So I do think you can make the comparison between John Hunter Nemechek and Ross Chastain. I would say Ross Chastain probably has more raw talent, but I think John Hunter Nemechek is definitely up there with him. Next season would see him run full-time for GMS Racing's number 23 Chevrolet, and it was a pretty decent season. He would be kind of that guy who's fast. He never got a win, unfortunately, but he was always right outside, the leaders. He had a couple races where he competed for wins, but never was able to actually capture that win. But he had a pretty solid season all in all, and he would finish with 0 wins, 6 top 5s, and 18 top 10s. And an average finish of 12.1, and it was pretty decent season. I wouldn't say it was great or anything, but considering GMS gets Junior Motorsports throwaways, I would say they're not necessarily top tier equipment once again, but they are they're pretty good equipment. I say they're just a couple steps behind that of Joe Gibbs and Junior Motorsports, but to see him go out there and run consistent in that kind of equipment is once again reassuring of just how talented he is. Would then get the opportunity to fill in for Matt Tifft in the number 36 Ford for Front Row Racing, and he would do pretty decent to finish off the season. Nothing spectacular, but much better than that of Matt Tifft, and he would then turn that into a ride for 2019, right? No, 2020. I was close, okay. This is where John Hunter Nemechek currently resides today, and if he ever wants to be successful, he's going to have to move on. Let's be honest here, Front Row is not going to give him any opportunity to perform at his highest level. He is currently carrying the team as it is right now to a top 25 points position, but he can only carry them so far. His finishes aren't even the whole story, as he's ran in the top 20 for quite a bit, but just hasn't been able to finish them, except for his 11th place finish at Daytona, but that was Daytona. And with the recent events of Kyle Larson that I'm not going to talk about because I don't really feel like it, to be honest, and I think pretty much everybody knows what happens and has their own opinions on it, so I don't really see the point of talking about it. But due to that recent event with Larson, I think this opens up a future opportunity for John Hunter Nemechek, because the future was seen as Ross Chastain driving the one when Kurt Busch retires, and Kyle Larson being in the 42 for as long as he wants. Now he's very likely being kicked out of that ride, and we're probably not going to see him for a very long time. And that opens up the 42 for Ross Chastain, who will slide in there nicely. But once Kurt Busch is out, that opens up the one car to anybody, not just Ross anymore. And once that opens up, I think John Hunter Nemechek, he has that Chip Ganassi connection. I think he could be a favorite for that ride. But I wouldn't, deny the fact that, Chip might go for more experience. But regardless, if he keeps on, John Hunter Nemechek keeps on performing at the way he has been with Front Row Motorsports, and keeps on stringing these top 25s, gets a couple top 20s, who knows, gets a top 10, then I think he will start getting on teams' radars and hopefully one day make the jump to a top-tier team. And I think if that opportunity ever comes, then I think the possibilities are endless. I think he is a raw talent. I think he reminds me a lot of Ross Chastain, and while he may not be as talented, I think he's just as close as talented and could definitely be a force in the future. I think he definitely can be more successful than his father was. No offense to Joe Nemechek and all, but he had a pretty underwhelming career. I think John Hunter Nemechek could surpass that pretty easily. that is all I have for today. If you guys do enjoy, make sure you like, hit the subscribe button if you guys are new, and comment down below your guys' thoughts. Let me know what you think on John Hunter Nemechek. Did I change your mind? Did I, surprise you? Did you not really know about this and now you kind of agree with me, or do you disagree with me? If you do, please let me know why, because I'm not really sure if there's much to deny here, but there always is there is an opposite side to every opinion, so there's that. But John Nemechek, he is definitely, his stats have surprised me, and hopefully he's able to continue that. And that's all I got. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.